This is Michael Jacobides. I'm a professor at the London Business School, and today in this meeting about the challenges in electromobility, I spoke about ecosystems. But why? Well, I guess that at a high level, the first thing to understand is that what we see in the sector is two previously integrated sectors that are coming together. We see challenges from the automotive sector that is now looking into a new means of support for propulsion, and from the energy producing sector and the grid that did not need to think about these interdependencies. And as we think about interdependencies and as we think about the dynamics that exist in particular in this area, it may be useful to consider how these interdependencies are sorted out in areas including management of ecosystems, which are groups of interdependent players that are both separate and not owned by the same entity, but at the same time very tightly complementary. What I presented was first a bit of a stage setting, helping us understand that this is not something that is happening in the mobility space itself, but part of changes in the overall economy. And second, some of the recent work, hopefully forthcoming soon, in the Strategic Management Journal, which is a theory paper that helps us think about what is so special about ecosystems. Because we hear about ecosystems a lot, but it's not entirely clear what is it that distinguishes them, or what are the special strategies associated with them. First of all, what distinguishes them? What distinguishes them is the relative modularity, so that players that exist in different parts of this ecosystem, in different parts of the value-adding process, can maintain their interdependence, but also be separate without needing to be hierarchically managed. So modularity is a precondition, and one of the reasons that we see much more discussion of ecosystems is that this modularity allows for the lack of the usual hierarchy that we had in closed supply systems or supply networks that we were used to in the past. The second thing, and where it becomes more interesting, is that you think about the types of complementarities, how the different activities complement each other. Is it that we have strict complementarities, that we need A in order to consume B, or is it that we have supermodular complementarities, i.e. more of A makes B more useful? What gives rise really to network effects? And more important, and strategically more important, in terms of regulation more important, whether these are generic or specific. There are things that go together, like a cup of tea, hot water, and the tea leaves, but there is nothing that really binds them together because all of them are generic. On the other hand, if you think about your phones and you think about the apps that work on Android and Apple, you have things that are complementing each other. Either they are needed or they increase the utility that you get from your iPhone or from your Android phone, that work within each of these two worlds, and then said, well, hang on a minute, in that case, the extent to which you can take something from one group of actors and move it onto another group of actors is the fungibility. It is the extent to which you are co-specialized that is really driving the difference. And why do we care about that? Well, because if you know that what you do is focused in one universe, one ecosystem, then you care about the health of the ecosystem. If the fungibility is quite high and you can jump around from ecosystem to ecosystem, frankly, you don't really care. So we start understanding what are these things that create these shared fates, and you start thinking about ecosystems as the things that create the non-fungible groups of co-specialized players, and the types of complementarity can tell us whether you have a strong incentive or a weak incentive to stay on. Having explained that, we looked a little bit at how that relates to players in the mobility sphere, and also at what is the difference when you are thinking about it from a strategy perspective. That is, if you are a firm trying to design the ecosystem, thinking about whether you're going to be creating something fungible or not. Because if it is fungible, you're going to create buy-in for the people you win. But if it's fungible, people might not want to sign on, and also from the regulation and the policy making. Because what the regulators may want to do is to allow for these ecosystems to develop when the ecosystems become too strong, to standardize them, to essentially eliminate them, to make things generic so that they are accessible to all, so that value is not unevenly redistributed. Bottom line, we started looking at what these ecosystems really mean in terms of strategy, in terms of policy, and started linking these to the challenges that we see in the electric vehicle and mobility, as we see different groups of players trying to come up with different solutions of creating the infrastructure that is needed so that we can proceed with cars that are not only more efficient, but that can fulfill the customer needs and reduce the requirements on energy, because our planet certainly could use a bit more of that.